Well, welcome everyone to today's episode of TMI Advice You Didn't Want. Today we're going to jump into a really tough topic for both Ashley and me, which is the whole topic of time and pressure when it comes to time and feeling like things aren't fast enough and patience and all of that wonderful stuff. So, in case we haven't met, my name is Karen.
And my name is Ashley. And even just as you're saying that, my mind is like going in 100 different directions
Mhm.
of like, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to time. And um, I recently sent you a video about time, and it was essentially like, I haven't watched it since I sent it to you a few days ago, but it was like time is our biggest master, our biggest obstacle to overcome, and we are controlled most by time.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting to see how that plays a role. And I was talking to another friend about it this morning because she's struggling with timing, and there's so many factors to time.
Yeah, and it's like
Mhm.
crazy. We've been talking about this recently too, where we're both like, time's not really a thing, but in this
Yeah.
3D reality, it fucking
Mhm.
is. And it gets old because you're like, okay, can we just like I know for myself, I have really been the word is definitely battling because that's been the
Mhm.
it's been an internal battle of like fighting against that time and how much time do I have, and I have so much to do and not enough time, and then impatience for how fast things or how slow things are going, right? And so for me that's been like my biggest battle recently, and honestly probably for my entire life. I do think that it is a trauma
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
me, that like truly goes back to that childhood where I remember as a kid feeling like I was slowing everyone down. Ooh,
Mm.
yikes. I hated that feeling and I still hate that feeling, right? Like where I feel like I'm slowing everyone down because I have certain things that I have to do. And so, because of that, because I hated that feeling, I started rushing through my life and I started like, how can I get done before this person? And it became like this it's not even comparison of how fast someone else is doing something, but it almost is where it's like, okay, well, I got to get done before that person, that way I can just chill, right? That
Mhm.
way I don't have to like keep running. I can slow down once I'm done. But the problem is that my body is now in a state of hurry up, and now your body is taken over as the unconscious mind and is now saying, well, now we have to hurry up in everything. So now that you're done that said project, you have to hurry up and find another project so that you can hurry up through that project. And so like it's created this like monster in my
Yeah.
life that literally is really rough right now. Let's just say that.
So, random question that came to my mind as you're talking about all of that is, you're the youngest or the oldest?
The youngest.
Okay. Because I see that behavior pattern in my youngest.
Yeah. So the thing
Hmm.
is that my brother, he might have influenced it without like me
Yeah.
realizing,
Yeah.
but my brother is a slow ass person. Like he is slow as fuck, right? Like he's just very analytical. Everything is very methodical. And so like that, like I don't know that, like I probably as a really young child was trying to keep up with him. Even like even though he is slower, he's 2 years older than me, right? So but in a sense you still want to keep up with what the older one is doing, and then at a certain point you're like, oh well, I don't want to do what they're doing anymore, right? So but yeah, it fucking sucks because it's like I don't want to, I just want to be able to go at the pace that I need to go, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just do what I need to do and enjoy the ride instead of like
Mhm.
rushing all the time.
Yeah.
That just gets old after a while. So, Yeah.
Yeah. Because yeah, I'm the oldest. Mine's very different. And I'm trying to see if I can see that in my brother or sister. And I think with my brother I can. My sister had a 6 year age gap. My brother had a 2.5. I can see my brother like try to keep up. Um, and my sister, it was different. There's different trauma I can see from her as being the youngest. But with my kids, the first two are a year apart, and then the third is 3 and 4 years apart. And you
Mm-hmm.
can tell that he works extra hard to keep up with them. And he really like works twice as hard as the other two, and rushes. And everything he does is on like a fast forward speed. Like he does not ever take it slow. Um, so yeah, it's very interesting. And then for me, I was the oldest and I never felt like I was behind and I needed to catch up and rushing for that reason. For me, it was I have all these ambitions that I want. And I had a lot of people that fueled my ambitions. And like I was like essentially like a young nerd conspiracy theorist. And so, like, I had camp counselors and teachers that fed into that. Like, I remember my grade 9 teacher talking about how we need to learn how to utilize more of our brain because she believed that the Egyptians moved the pyramids with their mind, like the big slabs of rock. And she would
I
talk
don't
about
feel
how,
like that's a conspiracy theory. Like every time you say I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm like, no, you're actually speaking the truth because that you literally can. Like, we just haven't necessarily, if you're not able to telekinetically move something, it's because you haven't tapped into that part of your brain. Because there are people that are documented in current today world that can do that shit. And
yeah.
so yes, absolutely. Like every time you say I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm like, no, you're not. You're speaking the
Well,
truth.
that's the thing. Like to me, I also believe it's the truth. But like growing up, I was fairly religious, fairly spiritual. Like, my family, my dad was an atheist, and my mom kind of went with whatever book she was reading, whatever
Yeah.
self-help book she was
Yeah.
reading. And they would discourage me. They would say, you need to stop going to church. You need to stop doing these things. And um I became an anti-vaxxer when I was 18. I think it was 18 or 19 when the H1N1 came out. And I'm like, this doesn't add up to me.
Right.
Um, and then my parents were like, oh my God, like you're one of those. And so like
I don't
I
think
have
just saying that you don't want. Here's the other thing. I think this is the thing. It makes me bananas when people go after someone like RFK, who's like, I
yeah,
don't think that we need all of these vaccines, but there are some that are healthy for as us
yeah,
as a society. I don't think that makes someone anti-vaccine. Like, I
no,
think that that makes you a normal human being that wants to look at what you're putting in your body, and you don't want to
yes.
trust everybody that is saying trusting the pharmaceutical companies is dangerous. I'm in
So,
healthcare and I know that to be true. So, anyways,
so
I got off my soapbox. I'll let you keep talking. I'm sorry.
Well, and I'll add to that. Like I watched a TikTok the other day, and I haven't seen what RFK did, or anything like that. Like I haven't watched anything of what he said, but I saw a TikTok the other day of a doctor being like, "I was so not excited for RFK, like so not excited because I thought he was this massive anti-vaxxer
Mm-mm.
that was gonna like take away everything and come after everything." And he's like, "But now I heard what he said, and I'm like, I can totally get on board behind him. It's
Yes.
not about taking away Western medicine, it's
Yes.
about making sure that the facts are the facts and it's effective and that
Yes.
everything we're doing is actually needed. Do we actually
Absolutely.
solve it? So yeah,
Yes.
so anyways, I was always the weird kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had lots of friends. I always had lots of people around me. So like I wasn't bullied or any of that kind of stuff, but I always had the out there thoughts. And into my adult years, I would have people challenge me on the vaccines and um religion and everything, like I always had my very like to most people very out there views. And
Sure.
even to this day, I can be like, I could get on board with the flat earth theory. I could get on that boat. Am I there? No, but I could. I can see the points, and I haven't dove into that rabbit hole to know if I'm there or not there. And so when you look at like the fact checkers on Facebook during COVID, like all the things that weren't being allowed to say be said because they were conspiracies, that was me, and that's why I call myself a conspiracy theorist. Do I believe all the things that I believe are actual fact and true? Yes. But it's like I believe the things that are like come they keep on coming after you. Like Facebook's fact checkers, and now it's proven. Like
Mm-hmm.
now there's documents proving that those
Right.
facts that were misleading are now not misleading. They're
Some of them.
actual truth. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the ones that I was on board with.
Sure, sure, sure.
And so anyways, I've always kind of been of that, like, how can I be my best? And so I had this like teacher or cabin leaders, and I always found the people that were really intense. And so like my teacher was like, oh yeah, when you study, you have to study with um yellow paper and a red pen because it helps your brain learn and process or whatever it was better. And like I got really into NLP stuff and all that kind of thing. And my first business in multi-level marketing talked about like the colors that you wear and the words that you choose. And so I've always been really into how can I be the best version of myself. And
Yeah.
it became an obsession,
Yeah.
and I felt like I didn't have enough time in my day
I get
to
that.
be my best version of myself. And it literally put me into like burnout, mental health, like can't fucking do life
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And I was at the breaking point of that, of like overachieving with my career and trying to overachieve with my relationships, having things crumble around me that were outside my control and feeling like it was my fault and I needed to do better. And then my accident happened and it like changed everything. And so, anyways, that's like a whole nother game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so for me, time was I don't have enough of it because how can I be my best version of myself? And with this 24 hours in a day. And I've always been obsessed with like one of my quotes I used to have on the wall was, you have the same 24 hours in the day as Beyonce. And so I'm like, how are these people doing it? And even just probably 3 weeks ago, I researched how Elon Musk, how Tony Robbins, and all these like big people, I'm like, how do they spend their morning? Because I want to know, because I'm so obsessed with like time management, the taboo word of like managing your time. Like I'm obsessed with how do I get the most out of my time to be the best version of myself. And then I get so overwhelmed with it because I don't feel like I have enough time to be my best version that I shut down completely. So that's my completely um time struggle. Like how we're
Yeah.
both struggling with it, but we're struggling with it in
In
slightly
different
different ways.
ways. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I do personally believe that we all have, on some level, the same struggles, but
Mhm.
because of certain traumas that we've had in our growing up life, like I can see the reason that you're having that struggle as the first child because your parents put all of their energy on you. And
Yeah.
so you had to be the best. And
Yeah.
so that creates this, I gotta hurry up to be the best, right? Like,
Mhm.
so I can see that being a trauma too. Like it's fucking wild when you look at how all of these things really do stem back to your childhood and whether or not your parents like on a conscious level believed it, they were
Yeah.
still imparting that thought into you as their firstborn, into me as the secondborn, right? Like, and it's just like, it's crazy how we take these things into adulthood, and most of us don't even realize that we're taking it into adulthood and that we're actually looking at our lives um in this very limited way, right? Like I was watching myself. This is how much I watch myself. I was
Mhm.
watching myself cook yesterday, right? I was watching how I was trying to do everything as fast as I could so that I could sit on the couch and chill out.
Mhm.
Why the fuck am I doing that? But it was like, is hurry up so I can sit down. Like,
Yeah.
I could just stand here and enjoy that I'm cooking because I don't
Mm,
do that very often, right? I could just stand here and just enjoy that I'm cooking and that I have the ability to do that. But instead, I'm thinking about how can I do this faster? How can I do this more strategically? And I feel like that robs so much joy in our lives and we don't even realize it. And I literally was cooking yesterday. Like, that's the most mundane thing, but I was
yeah.
trying to hurry through it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
watching myself do this and I'm like, why am I doing this? And so I was like consciously trying to like slow myself down. And then I was just kind of like focusing on um, what is it that makes me feel like I need to go faster? What
Hmm.
is it that makes me feel like I have to hurry up? And it just brought me back to what I'm doing with Dr. Joe right now. I have trained my body to be the unconscious mind, and my body is now saying, this is how we live our life. How you do
Hmm.
one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hurrying through cooking. I'm hurrying through my business. I'm hurrying through my job. I'm hurrying through blah, blah, blah. Like all the things that you could be doing. Why? Because
Hmm.
how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I really like I'm really noticing myself these days more than anything, noticing just how am I coming at something and it's the same. And I'm
Hmm.
like, God, I gotta get on top of this. And the thing is that it is so ingrained in our body. We don't
Hmm.
even realize that we're completely unconscious. I wouldn't even say subconscious. We are unconscious because we're not even aware that
Yeah.
that's how we are coming at life. And
Hmm.
it's becoming the observer that now makes it a conscious, oh,
Yeah.
I've made the
Hmm.
decision to do this for so long that now it feels normal, air quotes, normal to just live my life like this.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. And my parents are both like those racers. Like
Mm,
it's like if and you have to, and we've talked about this before, um, where you have to work really hard and you have to work really fast,
yeah.
or you're not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was how I was raised, is like you had to achieve
Mm-hmm.
to be worth something. And I remember like kind of going back to what we were talking about before, I had to have straight A's and have a job and be in some kind of extracurricular. And my dad said, if you do those three things, then I will buy you a car when you're 16. And so I was always trying to be the best version of myself. Like it was like really instilled in me. My brother and sister did not have those requirements. And
Yeah.
um, my brother, who was the second born, wouldn't have met those requirements had there been those requirements.
Mm,
And so, um, yeah, so anyways, it was very different. And then when my accident happened, so I was that person. I was
mm,
that person that woke up at 4 or 5 in the morning. I still enjoy that, but I would go to bed at like 1 and I was taking
ooh,
caffeine pills and
yikes.
I was like really overachieving. I was trying to beat like a company country record and I was killing myself trying to do it, trying to achieve, right?
Mm,
And that's when my accident happened. And when my accident happened, I had to slow down. I couldn't walk, you know. If I even to this day, it's now almost 12 years. If I do too much, I will get sharp pains in my head.
mm,
And at that time, it was more like seizures, where my body would seize up and I'd have like it felt like an electrical current going through my head.
mm,
And so I had
mm,
to slow down and I had to find different ways to do things. And now when I'm around my parents, they're like, you're lazy. And they cannot handle my work ethic in quotations. Like I'll be washing dishes very slowly. I'll be chopping slowly. I'll be cleaning up the counter and moving at like a normal pace, not like a like kind of
yeah.
like crazy pace, and they can't handle it. My mom's like, you're driving me crazy. You're not moving fast enough. And I'm like, I'm just enjoying what I'm doing and not like, I don't, if I do it this way, I don't then need to sit on the couch. I can then go for a walk and go do something else fun and keep going and keep going. And not need that like break and not feel exhausted at the end of my day and the next morning when I wake up.
Right.
And then what we had talked about before with our kids is now how do you teach that to your kids? Because I think there
You
is a time and
demonstrate
place.
it. You don't teach it. They watch
No,
everything.
so what I mean is how do you teach being present but also good work ethic?
Oh, got it. Okay.
Because there's two.
It's
I
also
truly
demonstration, I
believe.
think.
Yeah, and that's the hard part is that like um yeah, it's really to me it's really hard. So Derek also is like he had to be the hardest worker or he was worth nothing to his dad.
Mm,
And there was no such thing as breaks. That
mm-hmm,
your weekend was a break, but even then you better not be lazy.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And like very much living for the weekend mentality. And so um with the kids, we work really hard, but we haven't really taught them how to work hard. So when we were gardening this summer, like they were so slow, so uncomfortable and saying it was painful and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, good God, like when I was a kid, like I would have been working 10 times as hard and wouldn't have had a complaint come out of my mouth because that's life, you know? And so I'm like, so I understand there's like a time and place and like it's a learned skill, but then there's also the presence is a beautiful thing.
mm.
And so it's a really hard balance for me. Even like reading just how we've talked a couple of times about this too, Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans book. A lot of the people say like my biggest flex is that I can be fucking uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've ran the death race and I've done this and all that kind of stuff. Like when it comes time for it, I know how to work fucking hard and I know how to be in pain and have it be okay and like push through it. And so that's the really hard thing of how do you be present 80% of the time, but then the 20% of the time really know how to fucking push through and have that tenacity. But
I honestly think that language does not teach. Does that make sense? Like,
no.
I I don't think so. The reason that I say this is because I've been listening. I finished the telepathy tapes a while ago, but the telepathy
Yeah.
tapes is all about these autistic kids that they don't speak. They're
Yeah.
nonverbal, but they have a whole communication with their parents, with other autistic kids on a place they called the Hill, where they don't even have to be physically present. The thing that we don't understand enough in today's society is that our words are not actually what creates the communication.
Yeah.
Our thoughts create that communication. Our feelings are what create the communication. And so I
Hmm.
think at the end of the day, the most important thing when you're teaching anybody, I don't personally have kids, but I think it comes down to I've watched people like Lindsay Hurst. She works with Dr. Joe. She's one of his trainers. She
Hmm.
trained me a lot of Dr. Joe's stuff, right? So, but when watching someone like her, she is focused more on her thoughts and feelings than what comes out of her mouth because she knows that her thoughts and feelings will influence what comes out of her mouth, right?
Hmm.
So it's going to influence what happens.
Hmm.
That's the most important thing. And the kid, because kids are so, in my opinion, telepathic and they don't necessarily like consciously know that. We all are, but I think that as kids we are more in tune to it because we're still so new to this 3D world and we haven't really fully set into our higher brainwaves like beta brainwaves. But like when a kid is learning something, they learn simply by watching you. So, in my opinion, I think truly, I believe this. A kid is going to have a good work ethic or not, depending on how you are coming at something. If you're
Hmm.
coming at something feeling like I have to hurry through this, or this is a thing that I just have to get done, or maybe you're coming at it with like presence and I want to enjoy this, I want to do blah, 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 and I want to enjoy it, they pick up on that energy. And that is
Hmm.
what creates further for them, right? So I mean, yes, use your words and explain these things, but at the end of the day, like, I don't know that you can teach fully
Hmm.
work ethic because it's
Yeah.
something that you experience by connecting with others on that telepathic level. So I don't know. That doesn't really, like, that's very subjective, right? Like, you can't, like, nobody can measure what I just said. But the thing is that I do think that science is starting to catch up to be able to measure things like what I just said, because they are measuring what's
Yeah.
happening with these telepathic autistic kids, and
Mhm.
like really note, like, okay, your mom just thought of blah blah blah, what did she think of, write it down, and the kid will write it down, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we can actually measure to some degree, but we also
Mhm.
have to like get to the point where we trust ourselves. And I think that that's one of the biggest issues in this three-dimensional reality, is we don't trust ourselves enough because we have not been brought up in a culture that believes in a lot of this stuff. And so we aren't made to believe that we can trust ourselves, that we can trust our gut instincts. And so like we find ourselves, like me, I'm like, is this my gut instinct or is this my fight or flight stepping in going, oh shit, I got to do something? Or is this my gut telling me I got to do something? Like
Yeah.
there's a big difference, but we haven't necessarily been trained to connect with that part of ourselves, right? Like my parents don't do that at all, right? Like, and if they do, and I do think that we all do to some extent, but we've shut it off, right? We've shut off a lot of that because you can't measure it on a specific level. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
my there's my blah blah blah.
Well, and I think that's like the cool part about watching my daughter too,
Mm.
because we are encouraging it, and like she's reading Untaming Your Soul right now. I can't remember the exact word.
Untethered soul, that
Oh
one.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so she has picked that up again. So she was reading it for a bit, and now she's reading it again. And she I like I can't tell like between like, oh, is this a random thought or is this my gut? Like, is this my intuition? And I do struggle with that as well, like just how you were saying. She doesn't as much because from her age of 5, I've been telling her you're intuitive. Like when you have those gut feelings, it's right. And so she believes that it's right. And it's very interesting. And even too, so this is another thing that's about her and also ties it back to time. Um, so she has really struggled with not having enough time. Um, and like I've seen it come up in different ways. um Last summer, so that just this last summer, she was walking home from her friend's house, and all the houses have like these beautiful flower gardens like in the front. And she was walking past them and she's like, oh, I really love all these flower gardens. And then she's like, but I probably wasted like 15 minutes of my time looking at all these flowers. And so she came home and she's like, oh, I'm frustrated with myself. I wasted 15 minutes looking at these flowers and it was not smart and all that kind of stuff. And so we had to have a conversation about how that's really a great thing, that you're being present and you're enjoying your time. And like the difference between being present and also being responsible with your time too. So, yeah, it's really interesting. And so now that she lives with us full time, I've seen a massive flip. And this might be something to continue like on another podcast because um in the last 2 days, me, her, and Derek have had conversations, like all three of us, or her and Derek, or me and Derek, or me and her. And it's like we've had this like weird, like new realization of everything about our situation. And it's really, really interesting to see how the dynamic in her has changed so much and in relation to time specifically. And so she's lived with us for 5 weeks straight before. Um, and I did see changes then, but it was definitely different. And I definitely had a lot more on my plate and I was distracted. So maybe there is themes there, but I saw more in her brothers,
Mm,
with them being with us longer than I saw with her. And now because she's the only one that's staying with us full time, there's a lot more going on with her.
mm,
So yeah, so I definitely think that I don't know. I'm still in the like discovery stages of it and
yeah,
like sifting through it. So maybe we chat about that next time.
yeah.
Um, and it relates to time.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think we could talk about time for days and days and days and days and days because it really is. So, that TikTok that you sent me
Hmm.
that talks about time, it was basically talking about how the Lord of this world is time and like Satan is time, right? Like, that thing that you feel like you're fighting air quotes against, right? Is time in this 3D reality. So, yeah, we could talk about this for days and days and days because we all, to some degree, come up against it. And I see it so heavily, especially in the hospital, because the motto is time is money, right? Like the surgeons are literally like, get my patient in the OR as fast as you can. I'll get them out as fast as I can so that we can turn around to do it again because he wants to make more money or she wants to make more money, right? And so the problem with that whole trading that time for money is you're literally running as fast as you can to make money. I
Yeah.
don't want to do that anymore. That is a very masculine and like the whole time management where you were talking about like what
Hmm.
do these people do in their mornings and how do they manage their time? It's very masculine and there's nothing wrong with it, like right, wrong, good, bad, but I personally have been in a masculine
Hmm.
view of time for so long that I'm like so curious about more of a feminine view of time, which is, and I say masculine, feminine, I'm not talking about genders, I'm not talking about that kind of thing at all. It's just an energetic flow between the two, right?
For
It's literally masculine, feminine, they're just words. There's so much like connotation behind it. I wish there was different words that I could use, but it's literally a flow, right? The difference between the flow. The
sure.
masculine is more of a force, and the feminine is more of a flow, an energetic flow. And so for
Mhm.
me, I'm like, I know the people like you were talking about Elon Musk, Donald Trump, whoever you want to put in there that is in the elite, they're
Mhm.
not working on the masculine energetic flow of time. They're
Yeah.
working on a feminine energetic flow of time. They just don't tell you that. And the
Yeah.
reason they don't tell you that is because they don't want you to make more money than them. They don't want the competition, right? So, but um, the big thing that they're looking to do is how can I make the right connections with the right
Mhm.
people? That
Yeah.
is worth my time because that
Yeah.
means that I can leverage my time or I can leverage my money because now I'm no longer forcing in order to create more. I'm now
Mhm.
in flow to
Yeah.
create more. And that for me is like that. And I know it is for you too. It's like the ultimate
Mhm.
understanding of that. And I feel like I'm still just scratching at it right now, you know, and I say right now for a reason because I know I'm going to crack the fucking code on that because I'm so determined to do
Yeah.
that.
Well, for sure. Oh, and I think too with like talking about like the top elite, I think it's a combination of they learned the masculine skill sets,
Yeah.
and so those come naturally to them. Like it's that hard work ethic. It's
Hmm.
that um habit patterns that so like masculine is very much always the same, right?
Hmm.
And so they've
Yeah.
learned how to do those things that are
Over
going
and
to
over.
generate high results,
Yep.
and they do it on unconsciously
Right.
all the time.
Right.
And so then they're able to put their energy and their efforts into creating on a feminine level because feminine is
Absolutely.
all about flow and all about creating. And so I think, again, how we talked about how time is our true master, they've mastered time.
Mm.
The elites have mastered time because they have learned how to do the skill sets that a lot of us don't know how to do or we're too lazy to. Like it's the little things that make the biggest results. And there's so many times where I don't feel like it. Well, the elites aren't not doing something because they don't feel like it, because they've mastered that masculine energy of doing the same thing over and over again. And then they've mastered the being in flow of creating as a feminine. And then the true master is they've learned to do that at a high level and have people working underneath them doing it as well. And so that is like where you really are untouchable. Like, how could you ever take down someone like Elon Musk? You know, like he's always going to be successful unless he does something illegal. He's always going to be successful. His money is abundant because he has mastered time.
Yeah, and really, I do think I mean, we're kind of at the end of time here, but like, I do think too that it is also um, mastered thoughts. It's the
Yeah,
mastering of the thoughts and the feelings that is what creates the energetic flow.
yeah,
That is the most important thing in my opinion, and that's something Kevin Trudeau talks about. Like, he talks about how there's a scale between how much work do I do and how much do I think and feel. And he's like, you're thinking and feeling, that's the most important thing. I don't think he says feeling, but your thoughts are the most important thing that is actually what creates. Like 99.99999.999 of that is your thoughts, right? Like all of that is the focus, right? And the work, yes, do the work, but that's not the most important piece of the puzzle. So, yeah.
yeah. And that's what I refer to as the masculine.
Mm.
Like mastering the masculine is you're mastering your thoughts because you're doing something and you're thinking something no matter how you feel.
Hmm. I might disagree with you there, but we'll have to talk about that on the next one. So so friends, if you're listening to us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like, give us a subscribe. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, go ahead, give us a 5-star. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments as well. But with that, we're going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap for today. See everyone next time. Thanks so much for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue hanging out with us, and don't forget to subscribe.